Brilliant, brilliant. Hello, everybody. Hello, 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 hello.
Hello.
Ah, brilliant. Hello, Bina. Hello, hello. I wonder what had happened to you. I wonder what had happened to you. All right. I was just busy sharing that there is a bit of pre-preparation that can be done,
Yes,
so that
always
get
needed.
get the timing a bit more accurate, which is nice. All right. So I've got that pin
Anyway,
to.
this is so brilliant that we are having it regularly because
Yes.
for me personally, this is so important because
Yeah.
once I am getting into that mood and that, of course, that receptivity mode to absorb more from this, to extract more value from this, and I'm having it regularly, it's a big deal for me. And this is something I have experienced. That in learning process or in any process of anything learning in you
Mm.
need to have that consistency. Otherwise, when we get to into breaks and then come back
Yeah.
again, of
Yeah.
course it is still valuable, but somehow we get immune to the power, to the intensity of the newness.
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
and we
And
that
and
that
and
immunity is a big deal.
yes. And continuity. Brilliant.
Exactly.
Hello, hello, Elizabeth. Hello, hello, hello. Elizabeth says listening while driving. Wonderful. 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 Me
While we are
just.
doing this, I was just sharing my excitement about these things because
Yes. This continuity of immersion. Very important.
exactly. Otherwise, we get so easily we get immune to like, okay, yes, I know. Okay, yes, I know, because we don't get the value because it has to be like thinking it through to the end process. Once you started, once you are just put yourself on some journey, you need to go through as long as possible
Yes. Yes.
regularly.
And exactly. And also, it's the immersion is important. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Because as we know, the immersion, when you immerse and you do so with emphasis, then now that immersion is connecting to emphasis, and emphasis is what changes the brain. So it's very important, this immersion, because it's a particular type of emphasis, right? And emphasis is very critical for training the brain. Very, 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 very important. Very, very important. All right.
Yes, part of some really powerful techniques, and you can say that some secret, the real core or the real essence of transformation. When you really want to transform
Exactly.
yourself, when you really want to acquire a new way
Exactly.
of being,
Exactly.
you have to create a space. And by space, I
Yeah.
always say that is, the nature, the universe works in, at least in this way. We can say that it works in a way that you have to give up something to acquire
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
It is not like giving up is in a surrender way, like, okay, I'm surrendering, but no, it is something, just an exchange of energy from the universe. You want to
Yeah.
have some energy, a new energy from the universe, you have to give up or discard some old energy, stagnant energy, residing in your being. So when it comes to learn a new thing, we have to give up at least our resistance first, and then of course to acquire receptivity we have to give up our ego a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then to acquire new ideas we have to give up a bit of shirts. So
Yeah.
it is about creating a space. Universe always fill the space,
Yeah.
always fill the void. So
Yes.
just choose it wisely, which and
Yes.
what you want to fill with. So this is something very profound. Create a
Yeah.
space,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
release something. So it is, in this case, it is about giving up our laziness, our
Yes.
inconsistency,
Yes.
about our irregularity,
Yes.
and,
Yes.
some other things also.
Yeah. Look who just said hello.
Let me go there because I cannot see right now. So I want to see that. But whoever it is, hello. Nice to see you. Hello,
Can't see.
Norma.
There we go. There we go. Hello,
Yes.
hello, Norma. Hello, Norma. Yes, yay, yay, indeed. Yes,
Hello, Elizabeth.
yes. Wonderful. Hello, Norma. Hello, Norma.
Have safe driving.
Yes, 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 yes. We won't be able to see typing unless you stop, but maybe later. Maybe later. Yeah, yeah. All right. So just for Michaela, yeah. Yes, it is on Sundays. Um, but we are going through in detail. On Sundays, I'm going to basically focus on the next part of the story and focus on reading it in its completeness and discussion afterwards. Uh, uh, but now we're going into detail. We're rereading it again, but we're going to like sentence by sentence, and as stuff comes up, more words coming, right? Uh, and it's about discernment. This is what we're doing here. Yes, the overall intent, and or one of them, there are many intents here, uh, uh, is to share paradigm shifting and to really immerse in an alternative paradigm. It's not the only one. It's not the only one I think is necessarily viable or good or fantastic. It's one I personally like, and it has a great charm and romance to me. And also, I know my friends and those I love, all those present at the moment. Um, yeah, yeah, good. I'm talking to Michaela, and sorry, she's not listening. She's she's sending me messages in text, and I'm responding to her out loud. So anyway, so come, Michaela, come. You need to be here. But I was about to say that uh, that I also do feel and know, because those that are here and that come, that I know and that are part of my circle, as it were, have these deep good hearts, and they want more. They want space where their hearts can thrive, their hearts can be free, their hearts can be unrestrained, their hearts can be uninhibited, and all of this right moreness that comes from it. So this is important, and we're creating this environment here. But also, what does the world need right now more? Well, it's always needed it, but particularly when we look at the political situation, which is a consequence of the cultural situation, right? And with the internet, we inundated with information and opinions and authorities and all of this stuff. And it gets presented so convincingly that we're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, yeah, and there we go. We just accept it. We need discernment, in other words, right? People are being misled grossly by gross lies, because those telling the lies tell them really well, right? And they're very skilled at telling the lies. Without discernment, the ability to discern, we are going to get swallowed up by the stuff and get caught up. So this is what we're doing here now. These weekday sessions in particular, yes, on Sundays also. At Sundays, we're just shifting the emphasis to getting the story out, that we have a firm grasp on the story. Then we discuss afterwards. And in the week now, we're going through it piece by piece in order to truly practice discernment. It's not necessarily about discerning this particular story. Yes, it's because it's our focus, fine. But this can apply, of course, to any story, right? And as things come up, we will make digressions into other stories as appropriate. But this point about the capital D discernment, this is a very, very, very big deal, and super important to be able to discern. Right? This is super, super, super important. So we aren't just being casual here. We're doing something very significant. Now, you say, yes, but so, you like talking about this, but it's only a few of us here. Does that matter? No, it does not one iota, right? Because well, people do watch on the replays, but even then it's a small part. But it just takes one person coming in here, even for a minute or two, and they hear this discernment. And here's Michaela, brilliant Michaela. All right. So when they come and they hear us doing these deep discernments, they're like, oh, I better be a bit more careful with what I'm putting out there, because if this type of discernment is possible, somebody could come and do it on the stuff that I'm pushing out there. And well, not always that scrupulous and careful in what I say. And sometimes I push the boundaries a little bit or whatever. See? So even if somebody's not being here for a long time, just the fact that they are aware there is such discernment, because you don't typically see it, that's enough, right? So we can make a difference in big ways, in small ways, right? I know that doesn't necessarily make sense, but I'm sure you understand what I mean. So Michaela, just to recap for you here, because I was telling you, but you weren't listening because I was talking to you while you were messaging me. On Sundays, we are focusing on getting the story out and then discussion afterwards. But yeah, in the week, we are focusing on going through the story in with this deep discernment that I was talking about. And the point of it is, yes, there is much to discern from the story, and it's a cool story, obviously. And there's some moreness coming, especially when we start now, when we go to Nobilia with Biala and all this. But it's discernment practice. That's what we're doing now. This ability to practice discernment. Plus, in the week, we are getting the opportunity to pay attention to the tasks and exercises. And those tasks and exercises are a big deal. You weren't here yesterday, I don't think, right? But I'm going to just pick up there where we were yesterday and show you, right? Show you what came from yesterday's discernments. This was a big deal. This was a very big deal. So in the week now, we are doing it as very close to the course. All right, we're doing it on the fly. You're not doing it ahead of time, doing repeat backs and takeaways and all that. But still, I do very much encourage everyone here uh, to create their own dictionaries of power. So yesterday, where were we? Where were we? On the tasks and exercises. So yesterday we did this one, right? What aspirations above and beyond the normal might you have? What would an ideal circumstance of being for you? Now we discussed that. I'm not going to go all over it again. I mean, we can. There's no harm in it. But look at this response here, Michaela. One of my ideal circumstances of being is having a relationship community with others who are living with harmonious, intense self-trust, devotion to impeccability, etc., without superiority paradigm and scarcity, and being released from continuous requirements of the old ways. What a powerful, powerful, powerful ideal circumstance of being. Yes, and you know what, Elizabeth? I'm actually going to put this, etc., there behind impeccability. Yeah, right. It actually, I sometimes listen to how one reads things, and in this case, I was reading that, etc., right there, right, and that was it's very informative, very informative. There we go. There we go. All right. And then see, Michaela, this was Elizabeth, and then Sher had one, and Ramsey had one. So if you have an ideal circumstance of being or aspirations above and beyond, please share them. Please write them out, share them. We'll edit it a bit and tidy it up like we did here a little bit, and then we'll post them. So, go back. There were more questions there. So this is what we're doing in the week. We're going through these tasks and exercises as well. Share some of the nuanced revelations revealed via implication. All right, so in this one, I may have already discussed them as we went through it. I did. So I'm not going to go over that because I'll have to reread to go through those nuanced ones. So that's kind of already done. But if this was you doing the exercise, you're going to have to go back and reread and look and see and find those nuanced revelations. I think one of the nuanced revelations was, like, well, nuanced. Humanity had been evolved, not humanity evolved in isolation. Had been. See, very nuanced implication. One says something, some agency was involved in this, and the other was it just kind of happened on its own, right? So nuanced. And this too, the great project of the gods. So the gods are involved, gods plural, which implies kind of older gods, different gods to just the singular God of Christianity, right? Or any other religion's God. Yeah, but still, but it's a great project, so it's an ongoing thing, obviously. See, nuanced implication. All right, so if you extrapolate, especially with what you may already know, what do you foresee coming? This is a cool thing to do. I love doing this. Whenever I watch TV, whenever I read books, I continually practice my skill of extrapolation, which is to take the story and say the probability and say where is it going. Like you see those sales graphs, you see the hard line of the sale going up, and then you see the dot 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 on the end of the sales graph, right? The projected sales where they hope it's going to go. And that's an extrapolation. The dot 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 part is the extrapolation. So when we extrapolate this story, where do you see it going? Anybody? Bina, where do you see it going? You already know, but that doesn't matter. Bina, where'd you go? Well, Bina may be away from the keyboard. All right. Well, anyway, oh, that's right. I did put it here. Yes. All right. So, but if you extrapolate this, you could say, well, it's a great project of the gods. The gods are getting involved, and likely the story coming is going to be a story where you've got like in Homer's thing where you've got the story of the people on Earth doing their stuff, and then you go to the gods and you hear all about their doings and things, and maybe the gods come in a different form. They take on some disguise and they interact. That type of stuff, right? A typical mythological story. Maybe, but also maybe not, right? But that's a valid extrapolation. It's not accurate in this case, but it's valid, right? Or at least not to that degree. So these are very useful, these exercises. But we're going to continue though. Can you relish the dream? Do you relish your dream? This is very important. I absolutely do. Yes. This dream of a new paradigm, this one I deeply, deeply, deeply relish. Yes. And Elizabeth, I know you can't. Hey, Ramsey came. Brilliant. Hello, Ramsey. Hello, hello, hello. Yes, wonderful. I missed that. Sorry, Ramsey. I'm a bit slow. I was very, very thinking about what I was saying. Um, Oh, I had so much more come last night. All right. When you stop,
Yes.
Elizabeth, please don't be texting and driving. Please, please, please. As much as we love to hear from you, we love you more than your texts, right? So please. So
Yes.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm glad Ramsey's here too. But this, what Elizabeth shared there, and she said she made a longer comment on another live, I think Monday's one, about her dream, this dream of being in environment, in community, in paradigm, and connecting with people where our moreness can get full scope, where we can be free to share our hearts, and we can also be free to be awkward. That's very important. To me, it's no good just being free and you if you but awkward, you're uncomfortable. No, if you're truly free in a community and an interaction, you're free to be awkward. We don't care if you type it badly. We don't care if you express it and it doesn't come out right. Wait, I mean, I know some of the participants, they say, no, 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 wait, hold on, wait, let me say that again. That came out terrible. And then they'll sit there and think of it. Start again. No, no, that didn't come out right either. Let me try again. And we have the patience. We don't mind because we love them. And we know they're making an effort. We know they're practicing. And I want that same. that same kindness, that same courtesy, that same generosity, that same freedom to be able to practice, yes, and stumble. This is very important in a community. So many, many things that we are doing here. Many, many, many things. I'm very keen to hear what more came, Elizabeth. I love your immersion into this, and it's a beautiful thing. And really, this is about a space for beautiful arts. Now, I do want to caution. Initially, somebody might say, well, you're creating a very utopian bubble environment. Yes, much like you have a bubble for your baby, where you're loving that baby and you don't tell them about murderers and terrorists and whatnot, right? You wait till later. Well, same thing. Until you are immersed in your comfort, then we can learn skills to deal with BMNs. Unfortunately, the real world doesn't give us that space. But now we are going to essentially kind of start over. We are deliberately going to put ourselves in this bubble of moreness, of nobility, of exquisiteness, of understanding and awareness and discernment and all these things. And then after that, we can go and, do our homework on understanding the superiority paradigm. I'm going to talk a lot about the superiority paradigm by way of contrast, but we are going to immerse in the replacement to the superiority paradigm. So we will learn about it as we go along. That's brilliant. Did I see Aaron there? No. All right. I hope so Aaron comes again. That would be nice. That would be nice. I like it when, people just come. I'm not expecting. This is quite marvelous. All right, so let's go and continue with the story. And then again, of course, you guys jump in anytime with the comments. I'll keep an eye there. Bina too, and Bina will jump in. So we're all jumping in, right? Back on the
Yeah.
soon to be old Earth. Mhm. Yeah, I like this idea. Right? Just that one sentence, right? We're going to have, we know now they've all moved out into the stars and the spaceships were dispersed because the gods fiddled there and forced them to disperse instead of, all of the ships coming to one planet, right? And settling there. No, now it's like each ship on its own planet. But, 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 it's nice to think of this idea that somewhere out there, all of them are going to be referring to, okay, they got their new home planets. They might call it Earth or call it New Earth or New Eden or whatever the names are going to be, right? But they will be referring to Earth as old Earth. It just, to me, just, maybe it's just me, but just seems like a fun thing, right, Bina, for you? Or no?
This is actually a quite revealing kind of thing. Like, okay, you are establishing the idea that we have something new, something more is coming. So now by
Right.
default, whatever we
Exactly.
had, even in the
Yeah.
present, is becoming old, and soon it will be
Right.
old thing because
Right.
we have
Right.
so
Right.
much
Right.
of trust in it that this is going to be happen.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's,
Exactly.
I,
So
this
again,
one sentence is quite revealing.
well, exactly. And again, see, I'm also sharing this ability, the skill. Maybe it's a bit of an art also to pay attention to implications. Yeah, it definitely got some art to it because it's not always. It doesn't have to necessarily be that way, but typically, kind of likely, most probable. It just adds an extra, not just one dimension, but many dimensions to what we are perceiving when we pay attention to implications. It changes our entire world. And through implication, and of course, consequence also, but particularly through implication, this is how we extend and solidify, entrench, enhance our connectivity, not just to each other, but to the story, to the world, to everything. The more we see implications, the more we see how everything fits together and we live connectedly. It's a very profound thing. It's a very profound thing. All right, let's start again then. Back on the soon to be old Earth, the idea of humanity moving to the stars as a serious idea had begun with the corporation. Now, I know we live in a world where there's a lot of anti capitalist sentiment and all of this, right? And anti corporate and all this. But I'm bringing this thing in here because corporations have replaced what for centuries was a role that was provided by the church. If you think back, like when I was a child, right? Okay, it's not centuries ago. I hear the jokes. Thank you very much. No, it's not centuries ago. Just one, which it was in the last century. But when I was
Even
a
you don't
child,
qualify for century.
what's that?
Even that doesn't qualify for the full century.
Yeah, exactly. But it's in the previous century. So, all right. Anyway,
Okay, yes.
anyway, so
So do I. So do I. Okay,
there
awesome.
you go. Exactly. Exactly. So when I went to school as a child, right? Uh, yes, school was important, but in the community, in the home, your culture, your cultural way of being, your ways of living, your ways of being, all of this, where did that come from? Some of it came from your home environment and from your parents, but typically even your parents took on how they acted and behaved from the church, right? I mean, I grew up in a very, very strict religious community, not just in that town, but in the country as a whole, but particularly in the smaller country towns, was very much less so in the cities, right? And this has always been throughout time a similar thing. Because cities have more interactivity, so people can break the bubbles a lot easier. You're sort of forced to. Um, but that influence of the church, yes, in some places in the world, and since we're mainly in America here now, uh, well, not really. Half of who's in chat there aren't in America, which is quite wonderful, and more than half. It's only Elizabeth who's in America. The rest aren't. But nonetheless, the influence of the church has very much gone down, and particularly in the West, America, Europe, it's very small nowadays. What has replaced that as the dominant influence on people's behavior? Corporations, corporate culture. You go to work and you've got to behave in a certain way. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to be this. You've got to be that. The corporate, there's a corporate culture, and they kind of, put a bit of pressure on you to behave in a certain way. Yeah. So that's taken out. Now, many corporations don't take this very consciously and very deliberately, and they don't really realize how much influence they have. And if they were to take this more seriously, they could really profoundly change the world. I wrote an open letter to Facebook once upon a time about introducing ethics into the workplace. It changed your whole corporate culture, right? Anyway, so so corporate culture is a big influence, even though it's quite subtle. But it's taken the place of the church to a large extent. Many don't realize this, how much this is, and how much, because the corporations aren't really utilizing this in a positive way. They're just like, well, you've got to win, and you've got to kind of, they actually can push some negative cultural aspects. Nonetheless, if corporations were to use this and take on that role of the church, but in an ethical, impeccable way, and change the world very quickly, because the first corporation who does this is going to have such an inordinate advantage, because everybody would want to work there. Can you imagine, just all of you there now, to work in a corporation, right? Like let's say we just take what we are doing now, and the same logic that's applying here, and we say, well, let's make a corporation, and we're going to do whatever we're going to do, right? What doesn't matter what the product is, but our corporate culture is one of impeccability. Holy moly! Wow. Right? So now you're going to work, and part of your job is to be impeccable. Part of your job is to spread impeccability, because it's not just you being impeccable, you're going to have impeccable interactions with your customers and with your suppliers, right? And you're going to be spreading this to whoever you're doing. It's like, oh, no, sorry, supplier, you guys, you want to do business with us? You're going to have to raise your impeccability. You can't be having this squirrely stuff that you do, and you can't be having this sloppiness that you do. No, sorry, that's not going to cut it with us. So you want to do business with us, you're going to have to raise your, see what I mean? And the same thing, of course, your customers are going to be the beneficiaries of this. They're going to see this. And who would not want to support a corporation that has as its mandate, as its corporate culture, impeccability? And hand in hand with impeccability, of course, is ethicalness, right? You're automatically going to be doing things that are ethical. And you're going to say, right, you're going to be have to be a benefit corporation, because a typical corporation you are legally mandated to make money, even if it's not ethical, right? You have a fiduciary responsibility. That's what it's called. It's a messed up system, but all right. But as a benefit corporation, you can say our mandate is to do good in the world and to spread impeccability, for instance. Yeah. Now, wouldn't you want to work for a corporation like that? Doesn't matter what product they're selling, is totally irrelevant. I'm going to work and I get to be my best. I get to practice being impeccable. I get to spread impeccability. I get to talk about it. I get to share it. I get to go into all the nuance of it. And of course, we're just using this one term, impeccability. But of course, when you go into way of impeccability, you have all of the tools and details, and this is all part of your corporate culture. You're getting educated in all of the stuff, right? Wouldn't that be a profound place to work for? Yeah. I mean, to me, it would be. Bina, would you like to work at a place like that? Well, you actually do already, but
Yes.
right,
Exactly. And I'm
right,
thinking about what you were sharing about the corporate culture. It is coming back to the idea of appropriateness, because
exactly,
if
exactly.
something is appropriate, is
Yeah,
impeccable in some idea
yeah,
like the corporate
yeah,
culture,
yeah,
they are not everything is bad or inappropriate.
yeah,
There are some discipline, some structure which are
yeah,
okay, which can be utilized
yeah,
for benefit also. So why not just pick the idea and then just extract, again coming back to the extracting value from
yeah,
anything and everything. So yeah, the idea itself
exactly.
is not entirely bad or useless.
Yeah,
So we are just picking
yeah,
few things from there. Yes.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, this is just too wonderful. And when you have this real openness as well, you're going to change it. Now,
Yes.
furthermore, think of a corporation like that where everybody wants to work for this because, man, I don't mind. Yes, I'm getting a good salary, adequate, whatever. I'll even work for less than the typical salary. Why? Because I'm getting my heart satisfied. I'm getting my conscience satisfied. I'm doing things that I believe is the right thing to do. I believe this is appropriate and good and worthwhile, right? This is you have passion. Right? You're going to work like crazy. You're going to be a really good employee, right? Because you committed to what you're doing. Not only that, but think of it from a customer point of view. If I knew there was such a corporation, I'm giving them my business as much as I possibly can. Correct?
Yes.
That's what I was saying. The first corporation to click onto this and start to use this type of a culture and really put it out there is going to leapfrog, especially if it's like a Fortune 500 corporation. Yeah. Um, exactly, Elizabeth. This is in the greater community, capital C community. Exactly. This is all this deep ethics, this deep impeccability, this deep awareness, deep consciousness of being integrated and connected, and all of the appropriate things. So the first corporation, like I said, particularly a Fortune 500 corporation, if they were to do this, and they suddenly see a spike in their business, what's the next thing that happens? Every other Fortune 500 company is going to follow them. And when something starts to become popular amongst or starts to work amongst Fortune 500 companies, this trickles down into all the companies in the rest of the world. If you go to university and you study business, you study corporate culture, right? I mean, when I went to university, it was IBM and what they did, but that's more corporate culture. There was more like about discipline and I don't know, making sure people come on time and providing them enough space and silly things like that. Well, not necessarily silly, but more trivial, not so deep, not necessarily spiritual or philosophical or psychological. But this is a big point, and so they teach this. Corporate culture gets taught in the universities and also in psychology classes, right? So IBM also came because they really changed corporate culture in a big way back in the 60s. Um, and they changed American culture in a big way too because of this. So I already saw what a powerful influence these can have. And so if you now get into this way, and now of course, if you have most of your Fortune 500 companies adopting impeccability, right? Think of a company that's doing business in the old squirrely ways. They're going to stick out like a sore thumb, and even if you were to try it, it's not going to work. Even if you are a criminal BMN, you're going to have to pretend to be impeccable. And well, if you're pretending to be impeccable and you're doing stuff that looks impeccable, and well, that is in the end of the day, whether your heart is in it or not, you still end up doing good things and better things and not doing terrible things, right? It's going to be very hard to to take those shortcuts and do that. It'd be a pointless thing. So this is a very, very, very powerful force, and it's a big. I'm stopping on this a little bit to on this word corporation here to go into the implications because extrapolating somewhat. Right, I now know what's coming, obviously, but when we extrapolate and look at the implications of this, this is part of the story, because the corporation becomes the new nobility corporation. And this particular corporation, right, it turns out later that's who they are. And they are very influential in the story as a whole. You'll see. You'll see. Right. So I'm taking this idea and running with it because it's a world changing idea. It's a world changing idea if we can get it. So many work from home. Yes, Norma. Yes. They do. They do. They do. Even though you work from home, though, you still, like many work from home, they're still connected to corporations. And like my friend Tanya, she works for the parent corporation of WordPress. Wonderful company to work for. They're very progressive. They have really good stuff, and she's very thrilled working there. But so she's still connected to the corporation, even though she's working from home. Yes, Norma, it is very, very, very exciting. That what I'm saying here is also right to go into this even deeper. If we look at a deeper issue, we say, yeah, but what can I do? In terms of like changing the world, what can little old me do? I'm just one person, right? Here's one idea being put out by us over here, right? All of us here. Now, if that one idea takes hold, somebody in corporate world somewhere hears this and say, "Wow, actually, you know what? It's kind of wild, but when you sort of really think about it, this is like, man, this is huge. And well, we kind of struggling now, and we need something. We're not at the top of the pile, and we want to get better. Well, let's give it a try at least, yeah. So if it just takes that one person that is in a position to make this decision to do this, and then you have this cascade effect, right? And everything follows on, and the next thing we live in a different world, right? And especially with corporate culture, if one company literally has to do this, it would take about a year, because they have to show that it makes a difference to their bottom line. And you want to know, okay, it's not just one quarter, and okay, so about a year. And if there's very real evidence of them, the other companies start to get on board. And now in the space of like a year or two, with those other companies, it's another year, right? So in the space of 2-3 years, you're going to have a real significant change in the world. Massive change. Massive. Because even though people are at home and coming back home, well, what happened at work today? Same old, same old. Boss was a beer man, and it was all about winning, and it was all about being better. Uh, Now you come home. What happened at work today? Oh, we had HR classes, and they said it's about excellence, not about winning. Oh, wow, holy moly! Uh, wow, wow. Isn't that something we should be teaching our kids as well? Oh yeah. Well, we've been teaching them to win, 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 but does that make them actually good? No, it just makes them relatively better. But excellence, that's a whole different deal. See what I mean? Simple things, right? We don't have access to things like way of impeccability, the average person. But if the corporate cultures were to adopt this, now it's going to be made accessible to everybody via your work. And if you had a corporation like the new nobility company that says, oh, what happened at work today? Oh, we had an HR class, and they were explaining what impeccability is. Oh, what's that? Oh, you know what? Yeah, I don't know, but they said we can bring our wives and children. They have special classes for you guys too. And it was my corporation. That's exactly what I would do. Because if you've got your family supporting the worker, yeah, how does that not enhance their productivity, right? They with you, they in it with you. It's profound. It's profound. Domino effect. Exactly. Exactly. Profound domino effect. So this idea of humanity moving to the stars as a serious idea had begun with a corporation. A long-term idea began as a motivation campaign. The corporation was a B Corp, a benefit corporation. The concept designed to encourage and stimulate not only the hard sciences, but also the social sciences, especially those. There's many corporations that sponsor the hard sciences, not that many that sponsor the soft sciences or the social sciences, meaning sciences like philosophy, not necessarily a science, but part of your studies, psychology, um, I guess economics might even fall into there. But all of the sciences that aren't in a technical sense, like math and physical science and that kind of stuff, right? Engineering and so on, art sciences. So especially those. Part of the campaign entailed envisaging the culture, the ideals, the psychology, philosophy, and spirituality such settlers of a new galaxy might have. Now, can you imagine? All right, so the example of a corporation that I'm using here is a corporation, let's say like Amazon. Now, Amazon is in the Fortune 500. They're not the number one corporation, by the way, but they're a huge company. Everybody knows them. And Amazon says, we're getting a bit of bad press lately, which they have a little bit, and we need to clean things up. What can we do? Oh, you know what? Okay, so let's assume Amazon adopts impeccability and they start this impeccability culture. And Amazon says, we're going to start this PR campaign, and in this campaign, we are going to take this idea of humanity moving out to the stars seriously, and we are going to reward everybody who gives us a good idea for this, right? And that adds to this. There's no winning. It's not a competition. We're simply going to reward excellence, right? So share your ideas of how to make this possible and what would be needed, but not only scientifically, engineeringly, all this, but also what would be needed in terms of ideals, psychology, philosophy, spirituality, right? If you come with excellence, you get a reward, right? And they start handing out money for this. Wouldn't all of you send something in there? I certainly would. Yeah, that'd be very exciting. Very profound. I mean, I think that this would be if a corporation that's huge like Amazon would, or Facebook, or Google, or any of these big companies, right? If they were to do this, they'd blow up the world, right? Because already look how people are making videos, yeah. And you see them posted in groups sometimes. I don't allow them usually, but sometimes they come through. These videos of seeing machinery go, or pranks or nonsense. They're not appropriate for the group. But why are people making those? I mean, I must refuse, I don't know, a couple of dozen of those every single day, right? If not 100 sometimes, right? Why is this so popular? Why is everybody doing this? Because they get paid to do so. If you make these videos and they go on Instagram and people watch them, and the more watches you get, Facebook rewards you for this. Why? Because they want to compete against TikTok. So they're actually paying people to make these. And that's why you see this total flood of this stuff, right? And they don't pay very much, but they're paying for it. So, and people make a lot of effort making those videos. That same effort could be applied productively, right? So if you give people money for being creative, for sharing, for doing things, they will run with it, right? So you could just as well say, make videos about how you think this thing could be, and if we like your video, we'll give you money. Yeah, or you could use the same tactic here to say, if people watch the video and think it's a good idea, we'll give you money, right? Same principle involved, but it's quite profound how easy it is to get many people involved in something. All you got to do is be willing to hand out something, and it of course benefits Facebook, right? So it's very easy for this to happen. This idea, this campaign, came in a time of powerful self-questioning, exactly the same time as we have now. We're in a time of powerful self-questioning, are we not? Because there's so much extremism around us. Before, when I grew up, it's like, well, you did whatever the church said, and there wasn't really much option. You didn't even consider options because you knew you could be, but it wasn't a realistic option to step outside the boundaries of conformity. But today, conformity is very fractured, and the extremes on either sides, well, maybe some sides more than others, but the extremes have become more or less normalized, and they're a very real option for many people, right? The extremes aren't just a few people, a couple of dozen making a lot of noise, but no, these are thousands, millions of people sometimes that are now fallen into extremism. And of course, we question this because we don't know what's going on, right? We are but lost, we are overwhelmed. It took hold as the necessity for a new paradigm for society became especially pressing. Isn't this a time that we have now? That this, right? The necessity for a new paradigm is especially pressing. It's absolutely so now. One of the leading nation states had taken a leader, in inverted commas, into power who represented the very worst of the old paradigm of dominance and superiority, of the falsehood of ego and vanity. We all know who I'm talking about, right? I try not to mention his name because I don't want to give him more legitimacy. But it's not only in this country, right? We tend to think this, but there countries in Europe, India, Pakistan, all have had their share of BMNs in charge, in other words, right? Ramsey. Ramsey says, but I believe we should also remember that politics is involved in everything. Exactly, Ramsey. That's exactly what I'm talking about right here now. Exactly. 10, 20 corporations rule the world media consumer. Exactly. And they are looking for consumption slavery. They do not want aware people looking into moreness. Precisely. But, Ramsey, that is exactly what I'm saying. This is a culture. It's the superiority paradigm culture where it's like we've got to be the best. We can't have any competition. They don't understand sharing. They don't understand moreness. They don't understand anything. But should one company come and increase their bottom line, all of those Fortune 500s are slaves to the bottom line, right? So whenever one company does something that improves, they all adopt this. I mean, if you study business culture, you'll see this, or business tactics and business methodology. One company comes, it's proven to be successful, everybody else adopts it. So that one company that understands and really brings this into it, and it's shown to be profitable, will change the whole world. Yeah, yeah.
Sir,
That's
I
the
have a
key.
question.
The key. Yes, please be. Of course, jump in, jump in, jump in, jump in.
Okay,
Yes,
so
Ramsey. Yes.
I was just thinking about this, that why a big corporation, we need a big corporation to have this kind of revolutionary transformation or revolution in the thinking, in the way of doing business and other things. But as you were explaining, it just reminds me of some saying that they always say that the revolution never starts when the poor or the unprivileged one is in trouble. The revolution always starts when the influential ones are in trouble.
Exactly.
They feel uncomfortable
Exactly.
because they have
Exactly.
influence. So why the big corporation? I was just thinking that, okay, why not just start it on a
Yeah.
smaller scale and then just
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
okay, step by step, gradually,
Yeah.
someday we will be here there. So why you are emphasizing on a big corporation? So there's the realization that preparedness again, first that the influence, the reach, which is needed for this type of big ideas.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not just like a fairy tale. Oh, just suppose that this thing happened. It's not a children's play. Like, okay, just suppose we are flying a plane or something. No, it is just it's making sense that how these things can be possible. Of course, this
Exactly.
is not the only way. Of course,
Exactly. Exactly.
so
Exactly.
this is there are
So,
going to be many ways.
right.
So I was just
Right.
thinking about
Right.
this, that why you choose this way. Okay, again now,
Right.
when I was asking, I got the at least one answer of it. So
Yeah.
please explain a bit more about this.
Right. All right. So there's Ramsey, to address your point too. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. The majority of corporations don't want this, but there are corporations which are trying, at least, like that parent corporation of WordPress. If you look at their corporate mandate, it's quite progressive. It's really cool. I mean, there's a lot of moreness there already. So there are companies that are trying this. The key is it's not part of major corporate culture just yet, but the key is a profound strategy. For one thing, the corporations are vulnerable to public opinion, right? And you've seen this before. When corporates gets a really bad image, their sales go back and go down, and they've really got to make an effort to pull that back up. It can really affect their bottom line. So that's this campaign starts as a public relations campaign, right? As a motivational campaign, but it's obviously for purposes of giving them a better image and a better look and more visibility, etc., etc. Because if you see a
Mhm.
corporation doing something that is, wow, this is kind of cool of them to do it. It doesn't has nothing to do with their business, but you look more favorably on the corporation, and then you're more predisposed to buy their products, right? Coke is a great example of this. Coke has been doing this for decades, since I was a kid already. If you look up, they call it Coke sessions, right, Bina?
Mm.
Right, the
Yes.
music, right? And they're just
Yeah.
sponsoring musicians to really be cool, and they get together and they make these ensembles. And you can just Google it, Coke sessions in Pakistan, and you'll see this cool stuff that's
It's
being
a
sponsored.
revolution right there. It's a revolution
Exactly,
right there.
exactly. But it's not known by the general public. It's known in Pakistan. It's pretty well known, but also only with people in the connected to music and sound and everything. Right now, it's quite a substantial thing. So it's very successful for Coke. It really raises their profile because they're doing this. Well, yes, they're doing this to boost their image, but they aren't selling you Coke. They're promoting the music, right? So this is a profound way of doing this, and some corporations do realize this. Now, the other part of this, so I'm saying, is to leverage public opinion. Now, if you truly want to leverage public opinion in a big way, you need something that goes viral, but really, really viral. And that's the idea of this particular campaign. Should a big enough corporation take this on? It's a type of a campaign that it can be big enough to go like everybody, right? And the whole world starts to get involved because, hey, they're giving you money for good ideas, they're giving you money for excellence, right? So everybody can be involved, and at least you're going to try in some way. If you trying, even if you don't succeed, even if you just put in a submission, you're involved. And that's the key. See, so now you're discussing it with your friends. You may make up a little, a cabal together. Okay, cabal's not the exact word. You may get together, right, and say, let's send in all of us. Let's brainstorm and let's put our ideas together, and we split the whatever comes from it, right? So you see what I mean? And so the strategy in this idea is one to leverage what's already happened in the world where corporations, like IBM was the start of it. It's happened with many corporations since then, where they do something new and revolutionary and that improves business, and all the other corporations take it on. And corporate culture is something that is changing, and it can change decidedly more, particularly in the world we are today, where there's this building negativity towards corporations, right? So they kind of in a need for a big makeover. So we're using two things. We're using public sentiment and popularity, in other words, and if that is big enough, if there's enough people that are positive towards a corporation and likewise not so positive towards others, you're going to get a shift in consumer behavior. And this happens. It's not just me theorizing on this or speculating, Ramsey. This actually happens, right? You get these shifts in consumer behavior. So all of what I'm doing is I'm leveraging the existing structure just in this particular idea, right? And I feel it's a very realistic concept. Should a corporation, a big corporation, seriously take on what I'm proposing and really go about doing it earnestly, and the well, it has to start with the CEO. The CEO adopts way of impeccability, and it goes from the top down all the way through. This corporation is going to change the world, and they're going to be a top corporation in no time whatsoever, because they're going to get
Still,
massive support from the
in
public.
some or other way, the whole world has been influenced by this corporate culture
Correct, correct.
because I remember when I was growing up, it was in my country. It was It was like, okay, so the young people were, of course, they were getting hired by that. And people were talking about that because instead of like, okay, working for a whole month and thinking, they just changed the thought process of those people. Because
Yeah.
before that, it was like, okay, just after a month, you will get your salary and then you are supposed to work
Right.
30
Right.
days per month.
Right.
This is
Right.
how they were thinking. So all their system, the whole budgeting and everything was based on that.
Yeah.
But then when multinational companies start coming in, it was like per hour thing, and they were thinking per week, like,
Yeah.
okay, how many
Yeah.
hours I'm just putting in, and how they influence the lifestyle of those people, because they
Yeah.
had very calculated things, like, okay, yes, I'm going to work okay, that particular amount of number of hours a week, and then I'll have a dinner out, like, okay, and then yes, okay, weekends I'm going to out and just they go to KFC, McDonald's, wherever they want to, and their whole lifestyle changed because of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
big concern for the old paradigm here, because people were asking, like,
Yeah.
okay, how these
Yeah.
people are thinking, and they are living just
Yeah.
hour by
Yeah.
hour thing, and
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the real magic is not into the implementation, but the real
Yeah.
magic for me is in the methodology of these corporation working,
Exactly.
because
And
they
the
have a
culture.
very, yes, they have a very structured culture. So you
Exactly.
cannot just miss things like that randomly. So they have
Yes.
everyone, of
Yes.
course, in place, and they are working, and they are
Yes.
part of the bigger system.
Yes.
Anyone in any corporate sector
Oh,
is not alone. He cannot, or
yes.
she cannot just say that, okay, I'm the whole
Yes.
authority on this thing and I'm just going to do that.
Yeah.
Even the
Yeah.
CEO is dependent
Yeah.
on the worker. So
Yeah.
everybody is so connected. Their jobs, their outcomes, their productivity is so connected with each other and
Yeah.
dependent on each other. So
Yeah.
they are forced to, okay, yes, it doesn't sound right or impeccable, but they are forced to work together,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
need to learn to collaborate, otherwise the job is not going to
Yeah.
be done,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
system is designed in that way.
Yeah.
So not everything is bad about, because we have this idea that, okay, yes, because they are rich, they have money, so they are mean, they are rude and bad, oh,
Right.
blah blah blah.
Right.
But not everything is wrong or bad about this. The structured culture and the collaborative culture is a big deal from corporate sector,
Exactly. Exactly.
and the
Exactly.
power of actually implementing it,
Exactly.
because they have this
Exactly.
power.
But now, when you unhook from the superiority paradigm in the business culture, not only will it actually make you a better corporation and a more profitable corporation, but also you are going to shift some defaults of belief that are very problematic, like this belief that you have to have more on into infinity. What if a corporation says, look, we are going to make money up until this level profit. Once we get that level, we're going to start giving everything above that back to the people. In other words, at that point, we will start lowering our prices. Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow. Aren't you going to support a corporation like that?
Absolutely.
What
Absolutely.
if every time you bought from the New Nobility Corporation, they said, whatever product you buy from us, you are going to get a fractional share as part of your purchase price,
Hmm.
a share in the stock of the company. Yeah. So you become a stockholder. Now that may mean that, well, if I buy something for $5 or whatever, I may get a penny a year out of it. But if I buy, like some people, like with Amazon, they spend thousands a month at Amazon, right? I know people at not necessarily thousands, but hundreds, but yeah, some thousands even, right? So it's like, wow, I said, if that had happened, I'd have some real stock in it. But the point is, you're starting to give back. You're starting to give back, right? And now,
Hmm.
if you have millions of people involved in this, even though you're starting to give back, if they the shareholders and they're making money out of their own purchases, it starts to revolve around and it spins faster and faster. And this is basic economics. This is how everybody gets wealthier. You spend the money faster, right? So this is not an idle idea that I'm proposing. It has very real serious economic legs. And if this idea comes that, hey, we are here to make sufficient money to give you a good return on your investment for our shareholders, After that, we are going to become philanthropic. We're going to reinvest it. And well, we're going to reinvest it in giving it back to our consumers. What are they going to do with it? They're going to buy more product from us. See, it's a win-win-win situation. It's not this win at the expense of everybody else. No. When you start doing this type of thinking, it profoundly changes the world. And also, all those people that are sitting on billions and billions of dollars, you can't possibly spend it. So you want to change this. And there's exactly, and this is precisely the point, Ramsey. This is precisely the point. And in this story, this corporation, because they are so profound, that they start to become more powerful than the governments, because people start to trust them instead of the governments. Now, if we want to change things, sometimes it's better not to try, and the old paradigm says you got to fight it, you got to destroy it. No, you can simply provide a better alternative, and the thing will die of its own accord. Yeah. So the way to have this peaceful revolution against the governments is to provide an alternative, right? And a corporation that gets so huge that it's got more money than the governments, that will certainly provide this, right? So exactly, even on an individual level as a start, like you mentioned, exactly. Right. So, there are many options, like you say, with digital currencies and all of this stuff. Yeah. Now, who's in charge? It's people who are subscribing to the superiority paradigm. And their logic is, when you're on top, you suppress everybody else, which is why it's so important to shift the paradigm. Now, we can't necessarily deal directly with those people, but they are very much dependent on the population. If you can shift the population, you can shift the laws, you can shift the regulations, you can shift a lot of things. Plus, you start having your youth educated, right, in a different way, right? Way of impeccability. It's coming through in the home, in the culture. It's adopted. And now your new people that are coming up, they have this as their core. And you get this paradigm shift, which is so necessary, right? Then you don't have to fight stuff. Yeah, exactly. And then you don't have BMNs murdering things and doing all the horrible things that you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. So there's much that can happen here in this, when we start to understand the deeper sort of logic and the system of how things work. Now, I'll explain later. I don't bring it into this part, Ramsey, but when this corporation comes bigger, it's a side story to the main story. And with the new nobility puts out sort of economic policy guidance, and especially for, well, they help set up the agglomeration, which comes later. But I'll be going in later on very specific changes to law which can be implemented today. Very, 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 very small things, but that will profoundly change everything. So there's a lot of thought that's gone into this. It's not a simple matter, not a simple matter. But the best way to change things is from the inside. And that's the point. Don't be fighting corporations, and get them to change from the inside. What is their agenda? To make profit. Show them how to make profit using ethics and impeccability and moreness. Oh, okay. Well, they don't care how, but once they start using it, then that's going to seep into them, and then you can't really unhook from it anymore, because now you're understanding that to actually be good makes you more money than pretending to be good. See, so you work from the inside. Very profound, very, very profound. You want real change? Start from the inside. All right. So this leader was a representation, this old dominance of a still sizable but shrinking section of the population who clung desperately to refusing to change, which is the situation that we have now. This atavistic section of the population had never before been so obviously represented, always subtly, their agenda furthered indirectly. But this time it was blatant, raw, obvious, in full consciousness, and ugly. And this is what's happened, right? Now, it's happened in history many times before, but you never had the internet. And you never had it where those people could feel like they are legitimized, right? because always they would discuss their nonsense ideologies, racism, all this stuff in their, private environments, and they wouldn't really put it out, and it was always kind of secret. But the internet and this particular leader saying it so out and it being represented. Oh, well, if he says it, it must be okay. That means I can say it too, right? If he's openly being prejudiced and racist and nonsensical, well, I can be the same way. And that's what happened, right? So people have become emboldened and legitimized in their nonsense, and this is causing lots of problems, right? So we're in a very different time than we were in history, right? But this time it was blatant, raw, obvious, and in full consciousness and ugly. As ever in such matters, they only thrive in the dark. Exposure typically killed this false dream of stasis, showing it for what it really was, stagnation. But it had shown the clear necessity for replacement of the entire system. So yes, if we just look at politics in the different parts of the world where these BMN leaders have taken hold and things have become popular, it didn't work. They caused a mess. And there's a backlash against them, right? In some places, much more so than in others, right? But still, it's exposing the fact that, well, how can you have a president of a country, for instance, who does not qualify for a security clearance? How does this make any sense? But that's the actual situation in America. You can become president and not qualify for security. Like if you want to go work for a typical government organization that's dealing with secret, whatever it is, right? You have to get a security clearance. This is just standard working for the government, especially when you're dealing with more sensitive stuff. Standard thing, standard policy, right? You can't work if you can't get a security clearance, but you can be president. See what I mean? The system, it's exposed this flaw. Nobody ever imagined the need back in the day when they were setting up the Lords. They never imagined the necessity to even say this was, they just took it for granted. Anybody running for president would have integrity, would be sensible, would not be a irresponsible criminal. Right? So they never made that law. So the system is predicated on many assumptions. So your system needs an overhaul, right? And all of this is coming out. When we start to look later on, we're going to really get into overview perspective, and we're going to start looking at how the universe works things in the context of awareness and say, oh, wow, well, this makes total sense that this came about. It's actually a good thing because it's exposed the flaw and it's making us more aware. It's always about awareness. So there is a moreness involved here. It's a big, big, big moreness, right? At this time, the concept of the noble ideal resurfaced, but in its pure form, stripped of any superiority associations, right? I mean, the noble ideal started this concept of the old nobility in terms of, lords and dukes and kings and all this, right? The noble ideal came that, well, to have your privilege, how do you justify this? By being noble. All right, that's kind of sold it for a while, but then it turned out, well, not really, right? And that just got negative. But now this noble ideal is resurfacing, but in its pure form, stripped of any superiority associations. That's what we're doing here now, right? We are focusing on nobleness itself, not on status of, having hereditary, having a title, none of that nonsense. That's just idiotic because we understand the superiority paradigm for what it is. It's a negative. It's a no possibility of win system. I have a whole book that's dedicated to this, and the conclusion is that's the point of it, right? So it's not, again, not something that's ideally come by. There's a lot to this. I thought through. But this idea of the noble ideal, this is what we're talking about here, right? Taking goodness further, which is bonus goodness, is what nobility is. Yes. This deep concept fueled the idea of humanity starting over somewhere. Now, again, take that corporation saying, hey, we're gonna make this project and we're gonna treat it as real, even though technologically it's not possible right now, but nonetheless, we're treating this idea of sending humanity out into the stars to start over, but start over in a profoundly good way. We're going to treat it as real. right? But not to start over any old way, no, but to start over with true goodness, true nobility, and in a different way that avoids all of the problems of the superiority paradigm. Beginning again, but this time without needing to blunder their way through all the false and detrimental ideologies, right? Like superstition and this win at all costs, war, insecurity, like if you're different to me, you're a threat. It's like, really? Seriously? You don't understand collaboration, right? So uh, those are all detrimental ideologies. The idea of what constituted the noble ideal when it first surfaced had much to support it, and thus had a good basis for extending upon. The concept, propagated by the B Corp, caught fire with the entire world under the guise of a project to settle the stars. The concept was further developed and extended. Right. So now you've got a basis for saying we might not apply this noble ideal in our lives, but for those sending out into the stars, starting over again, this is cool. Because sometimes when things are so huge and so big, when it's applied elsewhere, you can kind of give it serious thought. But to yourself, not so much, because I'm gonna have to face all my awful truths and change too much, right? So again, it's understanding, subtle understanding of psychology. Yeah. Tasks and exercises. All right, here we come on one of these really big questions again. What's your personal noble ideal? Bina? I assume Bina is either thinking deeply on the question or she doesn't realize she's muted or she's not at the keyboard. Bina? What's your personal noble ideal, Bina? Ah, Bina must be stepped away there. So I'm keen to hear. I'm keen to hear. Ramsey, I'm keen to hear yours. Norma, I'm keen to hear yours. Of course, Elizabeth, I'm keen to hear yours. Anybody else is here? Please share. What's your personal noble ideal? Right? What matters to you from this point of view? Elizabeth has shared much already on this. How do you imagine your ideal world and society, your utopia? Now, it seems to be a simple question, but when you start to imagine an ideal world and society, your personal utopia, if you don't really get serious about it in detail, it doesn't go very far. So this is a question about thoroughness, diligence, scrupulousness, conscientiousness, right? When you start to imagine, like we're going to see later with Nobilia and the agglomeration, right? You've got to think about the laws, you've got to think about the economics, you've got to think about the education, all of these things, right? They all work together. You can't just say, oh, well, this is a society where everybody's going to love each other. And how they're going to eat. See, you got to think of all aspects of it, right? So this is very, 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 very important. And when you start to change things, then you have to really pay attention to consequence. Yeah, so it's a very big question, but it's very worthwhile making the effort to answer, because this is an ongoing question. Most of these tasks and exercises aren't just, oh, you give an answer and you move on. No. First of all, from Way of Impeccability already, you encourage not to give an answer, but multiple answers, right? Because there's many ways to do things, right? So give multiple answers. Well, it can be this way, or maybe that way, or this way. Yeah, multiple. Same with your noble ideal. You can have multiple things to this, right? But to actually do this as an ongoing project to build your own ideal world and society, your own personal utopia, this is a very, very useful ongoing exercise, because it's something that will constantly get updated. As you start there you go. Ramsey says to be self-sufficient on all existing levels. Yes. Now take that further, Ramsey, and say, this is a great idea, but how exactly will this be achieved? Yeah. So now you've got to say, well, we're going to have to invest in self-sustaining energy, first of all. Because if you don't have a self-sustaining energy, there's no way you can be self-sufficient in any other way. You have to start with the root of it, right? And you have to, so etc., etc. Things are consequential. So when you start to say how practically actually to do this, it becomes a profound exercise in implication and consequence, and it's very, very useful. So sustainable energy is a big part of Nobelia, as we'll see later on. It's a big, big deal. And it's a bit of a tease too, because Ursula, well, I don't want to give the whole story away, but you'll see. There's a lot coming to it, right? A lot coming to it. I have many, many fun things to share on sustainable energy. Very fun. Some of them actually have come to pass already, which it was just to me, oh, this would be a good idea. And then it actually came to be. So when we start to think about things, you'll be surprised what happens. What are the essential basics of the atavistic system referred to which needs replacing? All right, so I'm going to answer this question on behalf of Bina, just because I don't know where Bina is here now or anybody, right? Because it's a deep question that it does maybe, it's a bit of queuing. Oh yeah, Bina. Oh, brilliant. What's your personal noble ideal, Bina?
Sure, respect that personally. I just want to be in every possible way, in every aspect of life. This is
Wonderful.
what I feel. So
Yeah.
yes, there are
Yeah.
so many other which I shared with you, but
Yes.
this is
Yes.
something I really
Right.
feel that.
But see, I like that one. Why? And it's part of our definitions of impeccability. Best use of energy, being thorough, disciplined, thorough, diligent, scrupulous, conscientious, giving due respect, doing what's right for you according to your conscience. Those are the main core definitions of impeccability. But
Yes.
that one of due respect, when it comes to nobility, it is a capstone idea. It's a foundational idea from which everything flows. The consequence of that, you don't have to go into detail. It's kind of obvious. If you're giving everything due respect, you're applying appropriateness.
Exactly.
Life is easy. Appropriateness is the profound, profound core concept that ties everything together. Right. So it's very, very cool. And same thing,
I
self-sufficiency, consequential.
I would what Ramsey is saying, that okay, to be as self-sufficient as possible. Of course, this is very ideal. Uh,
Yeah.
but when it comes to some noble ideal, for me it is like where collaboration would be the main and the focus and the focal point of the
Yes.
society,
Yes.
where it
Yes.
will not become a burden or a problem or any kind of a stress,
Yes.
because when
Yes.
people are voluntarily, they are collaborating, they love to do that, and they are
Yes.
the system, the whole
Yes.
culture and the society
Yes.
is designed in a
Yes.
way where you
Yes.
don't need to be
Right.
self-sufficient in that particular way. Of course, self-sufficiency,
Exactly.
I'm not denying the value, but you're not, of course, nobody wants to be a burden on anyone else, but also
Exactly.
not dependent on anything else. But
Yeah.
the system and the whole society, the ideal society for me, based on collaboration, as Sil is mentioning in this big time again and again,
Yes.
where you don't
Yes.
feel stress that okay, you are not actually in a conventional way of being, that you are not productive. You will
Yeah.
see that in
Yeah.
future. What
Yeah.
so much more will reveal in this story, that
Yes.
they are a completely new way of thinking and new way of being, because dependency is not the case here, but the collaboration is, and giving value to every individual and celebrating the difference will
Exactly.
become the foundation pillars of this society.
Exactly. 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 So if we combine your due respect with Ramsey's self-sufficiency, note well though, Ramsey, I'm taking you very literally. He said to be self-sufficient on all existence levels, which means you've got to be psychologically self-sufficient, emotionally self-sufficient, mentally self-sufficient, spiritually self-sufficient, as well as physically self-sufficient. Yes. Now think of this in a corporate setting. If you are self-sufficient, do you need supervision? No. Right there, the whole management hierarchy starts to break down. Not break down, but becomes less important. Okay, you might not have all the skills and necessary, so I'm not supervising you, but I'm making sure that I can provide input as needed. But for the most part, if you know your job, I don't need to do anything. If you're self-sufficient in terms of your ethics and your integrity and your impeccability, I don't need to be
This is
checking
what
up on you.
Ramsey is saying also. Exactly.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. I'm combining the two. So, in other words, when we say due respect, if you're self sufficient, I can give you the due respect that your self sufficiency demands. If you're not self sufficient, well, now my due respect says that I do have to supervise you, right? See? So it all works together. It's quite profound. It's very profound. Now, here's another thing, right? Collaboration. If we want to have, and there's a quote in here somewhere that says the ideal members of society are those who have independence of being. Yeah, because look, when we do have both collaboration and cooperation, what happens if somebody isn't self-sufficient? In other words, if they're insecure, right? You say, would you please do this, Jacob? And then, wow, what do you mean? Will you do this? Like, do you think I can't do it on my own or whatever? You see, they start defending their insecurity, and they come with inappropriate nonsense, or they take offense, like, and then you've got the ego stuff. And, of course, all of superiority paradigm is dependent on where you are in the hierarchy. You're not self-sufficient, you're dependent. So when we start to say self-sufficiency, we start to have to unhook from superiority paradigm, and you have to start to unhook from your insecurities. Because if you're not self-sufficient, if you don't have independence of being, if you're insecure, you can't be, right? So this is a very profound concept to take. To me, this is independence of being. And, one of the main objectives of Way of Impeccability is to cultivate and provide the tools and mechanisms for the individual to have independence of being. It's a profound thing, which is self-sufficiency, right? In all possible ways. So it's a very, very, very big deal. So these essential basics of the atavistic system that need replacing are things like hierarchy, winning at all costs, just the whole concept of relative, getting value out of relative improvement rather than actual value, stuff like that. So it's a big question, a very big question. Share what all remains in your personal system which you are intent upon replacing, and share the origins and roots of where such legacy beliefs and ideas come from. All right, so a good example one here that comes up fairly regularly, things like people pleasing, pandering, being timid, being overly cautious, being afraid to speak your mind. These are all what remains in our personal system that we are intent upon replacing, right? And then we can say, where does this stuff come from, right? So oftentimes we do good things for poor reasons, right? We like Venus got a very cool story about this, right? The best brownie I ate was the one I never ate. I forget. Sorry, say your title, Vina. I'm mangling it. Vina, where do you go? Anyway, Venus got a very profound story about this where out of being overly considerate, we end up lessening ourselves in the
Yes.
sense of diminishing ourselves, right? What is the story of the title of your story with the brownie?
The brownie I didn't eat. I enjoyed the most.
The brownie I didn't eat, I enjoyed the most. Yeah, I mean, this is a story about inappropriate beliefs causing you trouble or diminishing or lessening your life because of you trying to be excessively inappropriately considerate. Yes. So
Absolutely.
a legacy belief. Now, some legacy beliefs come obviously from the superiority paradigm that you got to stand up for yourself, and people defend you, you got to attack, you got to defend. It's this war system, right? A belief that everything is a big battle. No, it's not always a big battle, right? You can have other ways, but still we grow up
Also,
with the stuff and we have to replace it. Say again?
also the subtle spirituality ideas also based on ego.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
not exactly like okay,
Oh,
exposed ego or obvious ego, but the subtle one.
yeah, Yeah.
Because we assume that sacrificing and doing things,
Yeah.
going out of our way, and doing things extra, okay,
Yeah.
when other
Yeah.
people are actually not asking, or they might
Yeah.
not be happy with this,
Yeah.
but because you
Yeah.
assume that this is going to be right and good for them, and then you start doing that. These are ideas, sorry to say, but these are also false ideas based on ego. And
Yes.
in the new
Yes.
in this new noble
Yes.
idea,
Yes.
even the spirituality
Yes.
will be accountable, okay, and then you'll
Yes.
see that, because
Yes.
everything will come
Yes.
back to the intent,
Yes.
and
Yes.
also the implications.
Yes.
So you cannot just like, okay, be a guru or something, and just start doing things, and passing verdicts and comments and choosing things for others.
Why? Why?
It's
Why?
not going to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have to pay attention. You have to really pay attention. I love the philosophy, the underlying deep philosophy of Zen Buddhism, right? Now, you have to understand Buddhism itself, really understand Buddhism itself, go back to its origins, and understand the wholeness of Buddhism. Buddhism didn't start off as a religion, first of all. That's the common perception. Buddhism is one of the world's religions. Yes, it is now. But Buddha was what, at least the whole idea of Buddhism, it was a philosophy. And Buddha was trying to share philosophically, there was no prayer, no worship involved, share techniques and tools and understandings which would allow you also to become a Buddha. So there's not the Buddha, it's not just one Buddha. But religion took this idea and they started praying to the Buddha. That would be completely against everything that Buddha ever taught, right? So Buddha is the deeper original, and Zen Buddhism was an idea of getting back to this, right? Now, there's more to it than that, but still, the point I want to make is that if you go into the core of what Zen Buddhism is all about, it's actually pretty cool. It's really nice stuff, right? However, subtlety of things, as Bina was saying, when you actually look at the structure of Zen Buddhism as an organization, it's like, holy moly, do they have titles for everybody? And it's all hierarchical, right? So this level master, then you get that level master, and you got this title, that's this master, and so you go up. So inadvertently, you are also propagating a hierarchy, superiority paradigm along with everything else, and you don't even realize it. It's a sad state of affairs. Yeah. It's a sad state of affairs. So when we look at this atavistic stuff, that's the kind of thing. When we look at what remains in our personal system, sometimes it's stuff like that. Yes, which the whole idea of Buddhism was to transcend all of this, and to end up enlightened like a Buddha, become a Buddha, which is breaking free from all of this. I mean, what is the superiority paradigm but inappropriate desire gone crazy? Yeah, which the Four Noble Truths, all about that. So now, okay, Buddha didn't say inappropriate desire, unfortunately, and that caused a lot of trouble too. So paying attention to preciseness, discernment, very important. But when you start to look at, your daily life, you might say, well, something that I still have in my system, I still gonna get annoyed and irritated and angry at stuff. What is that? That's legacy beliefs that you should get angry. Why? Because this proves you're a good person when you get angry at bad things. It's a legacy belief that's flawed, right? So it's very useful to pay attention to that. Very, 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 very useful. Very useful. How do theoretical possibilities or even fantasies become useful and valuable in actuality? It's kind of a dirk question, isn't it, Bina?
Yes, at least on surface.
Right. I mean, it's self-proving. Well, they become useful and valuable when you get usefulness and value out of them. And does it matter whether they are a theoretical possibility or fantasy? If I get real value, the value is real. The idea may be fantastical or theoretical, but the
Mhm.
value is real. So that's how, right?
Also,
And of course,
also,
yeah, go ahead.
also because that when we say things, when we read things, when we actually just discuss them and share them, even though it's just theoretical or just like very fantastic and all these things, even fantasies, our mind get receptive by default. And then we go into detail and then we start exploring it.
Exactly.
Even if it is just a
Exactly.
fantasy, we go into like really nuance into that.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
then actually those ideas become like an imprint in our mind, and then we
Yeah.
start working on it. This is
Yeah.
how everything actually start working. If we look at art, the whole point of art is to stir up some feelings in you. Okay. And these are,
Exactly.
art could be anything, completely a false idea. Might be the
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
metal bird, which cannot fly, okay, or anything else.
Exactly.
Completely
Exactly.
nonsense, non-applicable, but it just stirs up some feelings, and those
Yeah.
feelings are the real source of the creativity. Then you
Yeah.
start working on some other things. So
Yeah.
same for all the theoretical possibilities and even fantasies. That's the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a art and philosophy, right there we
Right.
can see that
Right.
it is to stir up those emotions and feelings and thought process about the possibilities of these things,
Yep. Yep.
possibilities of the implementation, the real implementation of these ideas,
Exactly. Exactly. And
and also
also,
practicing thinking outside the box, jumping
exactly.
outside the box.
Exactly. And practicing immersion.
Absolutely.
Right. So many benefits. We're doing this, right? We're looking at these. We're getting real use and value out of these theoretical possibilities and fantasies, because also you're practicing extrapolation. You're practicing saying plausibility, right? I make a great effort in my stories to write them as plausible as I possibly can, even though it is a story, it's fiction, right?
Yes.
Like this idea of the seeding the stars. I personally think, like, if I were to be a CEO today of a Fortune 500 company, or I really do seriously think that if a CEO were to, first of all, they'd have to adopt way of impeccability, and that's very possible, right? There are ones that do, they go and do midlife crisis, and okay. But if they were to seriously start this as a PR program, even without way of impeccability, but it would help. But if they were to seriously start this as a PR program and do it in the way I'm suggesting, this thing would take off like crazy and would really boost their business like crazy. It would be very successful, and they could have it go viral worldwide, especially if it's a multinational corporation, which obviously would be, the best one. So it's very plausible. And okay, I'm just saying that it's plausible now, but I've touched on many of the reasons why it's plausible. Right. One thing that we have in today's world, things can go viral, and you can start to reward it. We already, like Facebook already has this mechanism in place. They're already rewarding people, and they got like Thailand, and they probably got the whole country making these videos now. I mean, most of the videos that I see come from Thailand. Is really taken over in Thailand, right? Those videos of, I don't know, you must have seen them. I mean, whatever, some industrial thing or some prank thing or whatever, kind of just TikTok style videos. But they're paying these people, and it's become an industry. So likewise, now imagine if this was something that, instead of making nonsense videos that really for the most part are like, you scratch your head onto why they're making this, right? It's clickbait videos. If you were rewarding people for making genuine, real, valuable content that add a contribution to this project, wow. I mean, you already have people doing this. Now everybody will be more involved, right? So
Yes.
very easy,
and,
very
and we
easy.
have seen this power of social media in
Exactly.
our country, because the whole country get involved
Yeah,
into this
yeah,
idea,
yeah, yeah.
and they were using it so amazingly. I'm not
Right.
agreeing with them, but just the power of the social media and how they
Exactly.
change people's mind, and they are still
Yeah,
convinced with this idea,
yeah,
and it's really getting a big trouble for other people to get all this huge population out of that dilemma, that okay, oh, that
yeah,
fantasy, that the idea.
yeah,
And on top of that, not every idea or everything, every invention was the idea first,
yeah.
just theoretical
Exactly.
thing.
So exactly, but to consider possibility, as
Exactly.
Cher said, in her ideal circumstances, she wants to live in circumstances where pretty much anything is considered possible. And this is when you start to
Of
engage in
course.
theoretical
Absolutely.
possibilities and fantasies. The value is that when you really start to think about it, you're saying, like in this story here, somebody may read this and say, well, you know what? This is a fictional story, but actually this is quite realistically possible. And then they go and do it. Brenda, when she was on, right? In on the Sunday thing, she mentioned
Yes.
in a couple of times she mentioned about Star Trek, how
Yeah.
like they what did they call them, the handheld thing, anyway, those developed into mobile phones, right? So for one thing, but you can go look it up. There's actually probably I think 2 dozen or more ideas in Star Trek that have become actualized, right? That led to real world actual things, products, inventions, and stuff, right? And they were just speculations. So when you start this, you especially when you engage in speculation and you take it, you add that plausibility to it.
Mhm.
That's why I do this. I make a real huge effort to make what I say plausible. I don't always even share all of the things that go into it, because you can go and do the research yourself and you'll see it there. All right. Wow, I do love this. I do love this. You know, the great gravity engines. Yeah, yeah. By the way, talking about inventions and theoretical possibilities, and why I like this particular concept, and I still think there's much merit in it. When I was a kid, I used to play with a frisbee. Now I played on my own with a frisbee, but okay, it doesn't matter. So I look, normally when you play with a frisbee, you throw it from one to the other, and that's sort of the fun. But when you play with a frisbee on your own, which I don't know, maybe some of you have, you'll know that you play with it differently, and you start experimenting with what you can do with the frisbee, right? You can make it curve and this, but one of the things, and I had particularly good and strong wrists. I still hold the record, by the way, and I was an unchallenged champion by far in walking the cans. Because I had, anyway, different story. I'll say more on that another time.
Never knew that.
Well,
Okay.
okay. Well, the game of walking the cans, I don't know, at parties and stuff, is you take 2 soda cans or beer cans or whatever, right? And you put
Yes.
your feet on a line, and you got to see how far you can take those cans out without your body touching the ground, right?
Wow.
That's walking the cans. I could
Okay.
get them. I could get them to full stretch.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I had the ability to have the cans at full stretch like that, with my hands on the can and my body suspended on from between my hands on the cans and my toes on the other end, right? And I wouldn't fall down. But and so you've got to go out and come back again. That's it's
Oh my
quite a
God.
feat to do. Yeah. So for whatever reason, I could do this. I don't know, just who knows, just
Okay.
weird fun facts about soul. I could do this. So
Okay, so
yeah.
I'm just
Anyway,
going to go for 15 minutes.
okay,
Hope
okay,
you continue
okay.
and I'll come back.
I want to explain about the frisbees a little bit here, the fun part of
I'm
this.
listening. I'm
Right.
listening.
So yeah, yeah. So one of the things with the frisbee is if you throw it with tremendous spin on it, and I developed that technique of leverage and strategy with the wrists too. It would go. You zoom out from you away, and then at the end of it, it would suddenly go vertical, right? So it would go horizontal for a ways with that initial force of your throw, but that spin then would make it go vertical. Now, why? Because in that spin, it is spinning the air out underneath because of the shape of the frisbee, and it's creating a vacuum, and the air is trying to fill that in, and that pushes the thing up, right? And the top two, it pushes, right? And that's to me why I think the saucer shape, now it may be purely coincidental, but it's just struck me that maybe that's why the saucer shape is there, because from at least when you in atmosphere, you could use this same effect to go higher and lower. If you just had your engine spinning that frisbee instead of from my wrist and push the air out, it's a very very simple mechanism, right? Anyway, and I developed like in a tower, you could do this. And anyway, you go up and then you have it come down, and somebody actually built that tower. So, some of my theoretical ideas, I do sometimes see them becoming reality, which is quite fun to see. But anyway, this is why I like the spherical shape, because with spinning you can do much. Now that's just utilizing air, but when you also spin, you get centrifugal force, you get things heavier on the edge. If you spin it fast enough, see, that's how the great gravity engines, through spinning you can change the gravity. Anyway, that's my theoretical idea here. So that's why I like this, but this isn't that obvious saucer shape of a UFO. This is a little bit more sophisticated. These look more realistic than that silly design that they usually have that you see in comic books, right? So I love this, and I like that there's more of them too. It's so represented, this idea of how these huge big colony ships, because these things are massive. I mean, this thing is the town of the size of a small city, so it's a couple of miles across. Yeah, so multiple miles across. So those big, 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 big things. There's hope like never before. We're in the steep slope of an exponential curve, and from now on, almost anything is possible, not as hope, but as reality. The young man. And this is right now. We don't even realize yet how much exponentially the internet has changed our world. We are still in the early days of the internet, but all of this consequence of people having access to information like they never had before. People are working on stuff, building stuff, creating stuff, inventing stuff that they can do now that in history was not possible because there was no internet. Right? Even with libraries, yeah, I remember when I was telling Norma about my yesterday about my great reading project, where I set about to read all. It's a long story how I got that. I never shared that part with you, Norma. But anyway, um, I wanted to read all the classics in chronological order, because I was reading a lot and people were referring to this one said this actually was Herman Hesse. He kept referring to Nietzsche. And then I was like, who's this Nietzsche guy? And I went to read a bit of Nietzsche, and then Nietzsche kept referring to Schopenhauer and Kant and everybody else. I was like, come on, no, this is not cool. I don't want to be jumping around like this. I said, no, never mind. I want to know. So I said, I'm going to read all the classics in chronological order, all the classics in literature, philosophy, religion, economics, you name it, whatever. It doesn't matter. If it was a classic, I wanted to read it, and in chronological order. But the point I'm making here now is at that time, this is pre-internet time, um, to make that list of books, this was a big deal. It took me a long time to actually make this list of classics. Whereas today, I could just pop it in Google and bingo, and there you go. Maybe do a bit of research, half an hour at most. This it took me the better part of a year, a little more than a year actually, to put together that list back then. So see what I mean by steep slope of an exponential curve? That's an exponential change in productivity. Something that took me a year, more than a year, I could do in minutes. Yeah? And do better on top of that. So we don't really realize how much we in this exponential curve, in that steep slope, because exponential curves, they start kind of flat and then they kick up, right? We're in that, right? So big changes coming, big changes coming. All right, so I'm going to read a little bit more too. Yeah, so the corporation, in their efforts to stimulate the sciences, held regular contests to showcase new innovations, concepts, and great ideas. They started by changing the format of contests themselves. There would be no winners. This, they declared, was part of the problem. A foolish system which tended to waste all the brilliance of those participants who produced real value but who did not win. I knew somebody, or I guess I still know them, who is a scientist in agricultural science for the government. And he said that, they ran huge, big, long, extensive experiments. And he said all of these experiments failed. And people gave them a hard time, or you're wasting the money. He said, but the value out of those failures transformed agriculture in the country that they're in, right? So he said the fact that they failed was so wonderful because we knew what not to do. And in the experiments, many little smaller things, not the main point of the experiment necessarily, but little smaller things were revealed, which we now use. So in science, failure is often more beneficial than success. Yeah, very often. Um, so this is part of this corporate understanding. a foolish system which tended to waste all the brilliance of those participants who produced real value, but who did not win. They instead declared that they would reward all excellence. And again, imagine this today. If, like Facebook said, instead of just producing popular videos, we're going to reward you for producing excellence. It's a very different thing. Popularity is not necessarily excellent. I mean, look at those videos. I mean, I see them every day. I don't watch them all, but I see the start. They're all clickbait, and they just get you sucked in. You watch, and they never have an ending. They never produce any value. Now, after a while, you give up on them, and you say, "Ah, this is a waste of my time." But if they were all producing excellence, you'd continue watching, and you'd watch all of them more thoroughly. Right? So much excellence is much to recommend it. They even rewarded excellent effort which did not lead to an actual usable idea, but proved why something would not work. These were just as needed as those which did. They rewarded excellence in any way it came. A simple thing of why things would not work is I call it decompression logic. You're sitting on the plane with your children, right? You're in the seat. You got your kids on either side of you, and the plane decompresses, right? The door flies open, or there's a hole in the plane, whatever. Many reasons why a plane can decompress. But you're high up in the sky, and there's no oxygen up there. So what happens? Those decompression masks fall down, right? So what do you do next? I really want to know if you guys are still here, if you're still listening, what do you do next? Bina, if you're close by, what's sort of the obvious thing that you do next? Now you already know this, but I'm asking what in terms of obvious logic, what's the thing to do next? Right? You're sitting there with your children, the mask fall down. What do you do next? Instinctively, automatically. Okay, I don't know. Maybe everybody has had to go already, so I don't know if anybody's still here. All right. Well, I'll have to supply the answer. Well, most people would say, well, you make sure your kids put the masks on. Right? That's what most people do. Sadly, they might get the mask on one child, but then they pass out and the others die, including the mother or the father, the parent or the guardian or whoever, the adult, right? Sometimes they don't even get the mask on the one child because the child is fussing and squirming and being difficult. I don't want this mask on. But because you don't have your own mask on, you pass out and you never get the mask on the child. And now the child doesn't know what it is. But before they figure it out, they die because they're too small, right? It's really sad. So decompression logic has many values to it, but don't go by the obvious, first of all. And that proves what doesn't work. See? So that example is a profound example. All right, it's a very tragic one, but we can learn from what doesn't work so that we don't avoid those mistakes. Because this is a mistake of what seemingly is obvious. And your instinct says take care of your children. But in that example, because it's such a dire example, it's proving that sometimes you have to go against your instincts. So when those mass decompression logic says you first have to take care of yourself, put your own mask on first, then you can take care of it. Because if your children pass out, you can still put the mask on and save them, right? They don't die right away, right? Even if they do pass out, you've got time to put the mask on all of them, but only if you've got your mask on, right? Because if you pass out, you're not dead right away. It take you a while to die, but nonetheless, you don't get to help them. So in order to help others, we have to help ourselves first sometimes. Very profound thing. So decompression logic. But I was using this as an example of things that do not work. Those are just as needed as those which did. And this is very important to understand, right? In the bigger picture, overview perspective. The corporation handed out grants, funding the investment seed money. Handed out grants, funding, and investment seed money. Part of their overall business, funding new technologies, right? So they start as like one of these um, angel corporations. I mean, there are many of them now. At the time when I wrote it, it wasn't such a big thing, right? Um, but now, so because they have this forward thinking, and they see that if businesses, they can recognize because of their own depth of discernment. They can, and integrity and impeccability, because this is prime in this corporation. If you're going to hand out seed money, right? Literally, like when you go and you look for seed money, there's a whole industry for this, right? That bypasses the regular banks, right? I mean, there's even TV shows about it. But here's the thing, though: if you have a brilliant idea, but the those in charge of the corporation that are going to run it aren't impeccable, right? The odds of that idea becoming successful are considerably less. Correct? See, so if you have the ability to see and recognize impeccability and character, you considerably increase your chances of investment. Because on the other side too, if you've got impeccable founders and leaders of a corporation, but the idea is not the greatest, it's a good idea, but it's not like super brilliant. Does it matter? No, they're going to make it work anyway. See? So this is the key ingredient. The brilliance of the idea is not the key ingredient, but that's often in these corporations, in these today's seed corporations. That, and if on the TV shows, it's all about the brilliance of the idea, but it's a flawed business paradigm, right? You can't have that. So that's why the company became very successful, because they applied this understanding of impeccability and using discernment, looking at the bigger picture, looking at the overall picture, looking at the culture of the business and all this stuff to make it successful. It's like, wow. And of course, if you are starting companies, new companies, you want more money. Well, first you got to do make sure that you all understand Way of Impeccability and subscribe to it and use it. Otherwise, forget about it. Wow. And now you're going to be putting out companies that are starting with Way of Impeccability as corporate culture, guaranteed to succeed. Yeah. So yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, not guaranteed, but higher probability. So that's how they made their money, right? How they started. Um, right. Funding new technologies, new ways of doing business, new ways to run corporation. It all worked together. The new corporations they funded and invested took over the world. This campaign making the original investment company the most wealthy corporation by far, because they kept part of their funding. They gave you actual money, but they also said, we want to share in your company. So all of these companies became subsidiaries of the original corporation, right? So that's how they came to be the most wealthy by far, right? So very big deal, very big deal. But the company initially did not have the resources to reward all the excellent ideas financially. Instead, using a master stroke of inspirational genius, setting up their project as a long-term realistic plan and dream. The goal was to fulfill just exactly how this dream might be accomplished. Sending humanity out into the stars was presented seriously. The efforts they would be rewarding was anything which brought this ideal one step closer. The genius which caught the imagination of those of creativity and aspiration across the world was the primary reward, a place on the starships. Now think about this right today. All right, so we started off and this corporation said, hey, we've got this idea of seeding humanity, putting them out in the stars, starting new, starting fresh, starting in an ideal way, where we're not going to repeat the mistakes, right? And how would we're going to reward any ideas which further this and bring it closer to reality, right? And make it more viable, more plausible, more effective. Now, initially they hand out money, but after a while, this keeps on going. And well, all right, the money's nice, but you kind of need a bit more, right? Now they say so. Then they say this: we're going to reward you with a place on the starships. Can you imagine? And now, like I was explaining, right? This meant that not only that your sharing was excellent, but you too had to demonstrate that you had good character and that you had moreness to you. So this becomes like, wow, if I want a job anywhere and I say, well, I've been awarded a place on the starships, that's guaranteed job, because you've already been vetted by a corporation that's very skilled at this. This was their main business, right? And you've now demonstrated that not only do you have excellent ideas, but you are yourself someone who has a commitment to excellence and is able to implement it in terms of your character, right? In other words, you're honest, you're trustworthy, you're diligent, you're punctual, all of that stuff, right? So you're going to get a job anyway. So this becomes a highly sought after thing. Yes, it's very valuable in real world monetary terms. Yes, or you write a book and you say, Starship Seeder. Well, that's going to help your book sales tremendously. See, so you run for office. Well, you're going to get a lot more votes as being a seeder. Yeah, or a noble superhero as they became to known also, but as a seeder, right? This ignited passion. Most again, see what I'm saying? When you start to think these things through and you start to get to that plausibility like this, it's like, wow, that sounds very cool. But oh, wow, I didn't really think about it in terms of this being a reward that has a monetary value. Oh, when you do, it's like, wow, oh, okay. Oh, I see now. It's like saying you're a New York best-selling author. This opens up many doors for you, right? Same thing. If you get a place on a starship like that in this type of environment, this is going to be a huge big deal. Adds plausibility, what I'm saying, which to me, like I really do feel that based on all these little things, because I've really thought them through, this is a very realistically plausible idea, very much so. Most imagined such a selection would be determined by money, status, power, etc. But when it became clear excellence in all its forms would be the only criteria, the undertaking took hold that everyone had a chance. Yes. So think of yourself. Where's your excellence lie? Well, are you not excellently honest? Yes. That's the start. Doesn't matter that you might have some beliefs and ideas which are, well, when you think them through, they could use a bit of work and they're not all that solid. And okay, it doesn't matter. If you're honest when presented with or an opportunity, an environment where you really get into making your ideas real, you're going to say, no, yeah, I thought this was a great idea, but now when I actually sort of think a bit more about it, not so good. Your honesty will not let you go down those ways. But if you're a BMN and a narcissist, well, doesn't matter how terrible your idea is, you don't want to look bad and be proven wrong and all of this, so you just keep at your dumb idea, right? So see how honesty, just one single trait, is super valuable. In my life, I've owned various businesses, and in one of them, we had high staff turnover because of the nature of the culture we were in. And I never cared about your experience. I always hired you based on your character. And I've told this to many other people that I've known in a hiring capability. And one friend too, she was worried. She said, oh, she wanted this job. She really, really wanted this job. And she said, yeah, but I don't have all the technical expertise. I have some, but not nearly as much as I know I kind of need or should have. I said, look, in your CV, in your application, accentuate, focus on and pay attention to, let them know about your good character. I promise you, any HR person worth their salt will hire you because of your good character. Your experience is not that important. Your good character is much more important, because you can find people with experience easily enough, right? Or qualifications easily enough. But if they have poor character, they're going to ruin your business. I mean, think of the world's best salesman who's also dishonest. At some point, that dishonesty is going to come out, and all your customers are going to be all upset that they've been lied to, and there goes your business. Or they steal from you. Again, there goes your business, right? Or they do other unethical and terrible things. Like in the Me Too movement, right? All those companies that had those CEOs who got caught up. Where's the companies today? Completely gone, right? So character is more important than experience. And again, too, anybody in HR knows that if you have good character, you're eager to learn, you're willing to learn, you're going to be disciplined and thorough, you're going to be committed to doing a good job. And in order to do a good job, you're going to learn what's necessary. They know you'll learn what you need to learn. Don't worry about it. But because you already have the ingredients that will automatically make you learn. But employ somebody, no matter how much the experience, there's always learning needed for the job. If they lazy and uncaring and couldn't be bothered and dishonest, well, first of all, you don't even know if those credentials are really real or not, right? So you're wasting your time. So always character before experience and skills. Always, 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 right? So when you understand this in the context of this understanding in terms of rewarding excellence, right, and giving them a place, This is a game changer. It's very profound that everyone had a chance. You just have to have your good character. You don't have to know stuff because you're going to learn. You have to have that willingness to learn, right? And that
Absolutely.
honesty, that thoroughness, that discipline, right, Bina? Very important, yeah.
Yes, yes. We are on a good point and a good time also. Like, okay,
Okay, okay.
let's wrap
Let me
it
read
in.
to the end of this. Let me read to the end of
Yes,
this.
yes.
Especially when it became known that any efforts of goodness would also be rewarded in this way. As the project developed, individuals could be nominated by others simply by virtue of how they had lived their lives. Yes. So I look at somebody who's lived their life. That person who's the cliched one of the janitor who gone to work every day and supported their family, put the kids through college, and et cetera, et cetera. Those are the kind of people, right? Solid, totally good people, diligent, hardworking, willing to learn. They never had opportunity, right? Okay, that person might say, you know what, I'm not a good leader because I'm very conservative and I've got narrow ideas or whatever, so they won't be nominated. But if they don't have that, then they would be simply by virtue of the fact that they lived a good life. Yeah? It's a very profound thing, though. Very profound thing. This. Where's
Yes.
the next? Okay, let me one more slide, Bina, then because that's the task and
Okay.
exercises.
Okay.
Being selected to be a representative of humanity, a representative of goodness, effort, ingenuity, and other desirable qualities became a matter of peculiar humble pride. Yes. I mean, this is something that, like all of you, wouldn't you like to be nominated? Wouldn't you like to be on those ships in recognition that, hey, you good people, you've lived a good life? Not in the usual successful way, but it's acknowledged that you are a good person that's making an effort, right? This would be a profound thing. And other desirable, humble pride, right? So I would think this would be a profound thing. Yeah. Uh, Finally, those efforts which many deemed to be good and useful, but which were not usually rewarded in the material world, now were, right? So your ongoing kindness. I know all of you, right? At least some of you more so than others. I know you regularly produce these efforts of kindness and they're not recognized. Yes, but I see them. And if those were to be, now it's a whole different ballgame. These are the kind of people you want in a new community. Yes, where those in a new environment, where you don't need to hide the stuff, where you can celebrate it and share it and enjoy it. Now you're going to flower. Now you're going to prosper. Now you're going to blossom. Yes. The project took on a life of its own, being rewarded with a place on the starships, being chosen, became the new standard of achievement, especially since it affected anyone in any sphere of life. Again, this idea is a very plausible idea. If you have this and this becomes a new standard of achievement, not getting a gold medal, not being wealthy, not being famous, those are our standards of achievements now. Yes. Being famous, being wealthy, or getting some kind of medal, right? Whether it be a medal of, I don't know, a platinum record or literally gold medals or best-selling author, whatever, right? Some kind of a label that's a medal. No, that's not it. Yeah. So when you shift this, a very profound change, very profound change. All right. So we're on slide 20 and we'll continue with this tomorrow. I love it. I love it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I think I'll put them all to sleep a bit, Abina, but I assume they had to go and all that. It's all good. It's all good. I do this for me and for you, and it doesn't matter if you're here or not, right? You don't have to be here for all of it to get value. You can be here for 5 minutes and get value. So thank you all for being here. I'm actually a bit out of energy too, Bina, so I have to go too.
Oh, thank you. Thank
As
you
you
so
can
much, everyone, for coming
probably,
here and sharing. Ramsey, Norma, Elizabeth, and of course, some who were not able to manage to come today. But of course,
oh,
we are just
oh,
having you as a spread. Just want to conclude this thing because for me, the most profound thing of my whole learning process was connectivity. And if any
mm,
idea and perspective is making vital, logical, and rational connection with and vital connection with the other aspect, then it all makes sense to me. Today, when we were talking about the idea of celebrating excellence instead of like someone who is going to win, okay, reach the time before that,
yes,
it is basically actually celebrating the intent to witness, because this is what we have been doing. Like
yeah,
are not going to look at the outcome, but the intent is going to be celebrated and, of course, noticed. And, of course, the criteria of qualification. So now it is coming back to like the full circle that the whole idea, the whole society can be actually set up
No,
in a way where we celebrate
no,
the intent of goodness, not the actual. Okay,
no.
actions could be different, could be taken differently,
Yes,
and
Bina.
gestures could be taken differently, but the intent to goodness is going to be celebrated, and this is
Yeah,
something all can do right now in our circles. We can
yeah.
start trusting each others and their intent to goodness. We can start celebrating their intent to goodness instead of just looking at the visible or obvious gestures and actions. And by that, we can start building up, laying the foundation of the society of improvements.
Yeah.
It is very much implementable.
It's profound. It's profound. It's profound.
Okay. Thank you so
It's
much.
profound.
Good to see you
Oh,
tomorrow.
pleasure, Bina. I love that. This intent to goodness, it's a very powerful point. Not trying to be good, but intent to goodness. There's a substantial difference. There's a substantial difference. Yes. And also,
Okay.
when you look at this, just from a quick thought that popped into my head there while you were talking, is that, those that are going to be on the starships, typically when we start to look at, when you start to, okay, we're going to pick the best. Usually you are picking those who have those criteria, but otherwise those who are very ambitious. Yes, that's who you're going to choose. No, in these starships, no. If you're very ambitious, this is going to count against you. Yeah,
Yes,
because
because
ambition
it's
has got
personal.
that whole hierarchy that goes together with it.
Because it is
No,
personal, it is
right,
limited.
right. Exactly. In this starting fresh, we want to avoid ambitiousness as a quality. This we don't want to take out there because it's a very destructive quality. Even though, like my mother, if you put her on a lie detector test and asked her, "Do you think ambition is a good thing?" She would have said yes. Maybe I'm probably still today. But ambition to her was one of the most desired quality in her children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Got to
it,
think about things.
I
Got to
used
think
to
about
have
things.
this question from my like okay elders around me that okay, what is your ambition? And then
Yeah.
they just feed this idea that okay, ambition,
Yeah.
being ambitious is something really good
Yeah.
because this was part of my culture. Like okay, when you are meeting with your father's friends and
Yeah.
mother's friends, and they ask you okay, what is your
Yeah.
ambition? And I'm
Yeah.
like okay, we
Yeah.
all were so attuned with this idea that you have
Yeah.
to have some ambition in your
Yeah.
life, otherwise you are just like nothing. So this is
Oh,
something we grew up with.
exactly. Oh, something happened, Bina. I don't know what happened. Ramsey, Norma, Elizabeth. Somehow, Facebook stopped updating the comments. That's why I said I think you guys have all fallen asleep or had to go do other stuff. But no, they're commenting here. I
Oh,
missed a ton of comments. I missed a ton
oh
of
my,
comments here.
I'm so sorry. Just sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Norma. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I'm sorry, Ramsey. For whatever reason, it wasn't showing me the comments. That's why I was joking. I said, "Oh, I think you've fallen asleep." Oh, now I'm gonna have to go through your comments. All right, I'm out of energy, but I do appreciate them there. And when I'm gonna just take a bit of a break, and then I'm gonna come back and respond to them in comments. Right?
Yes.
This is too wonderful. I was wondering what had happened. So, so much good stuff here. Just skimming through it real quickly. Sorry, I wasn't ignoring you guys. And absolutely, my pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure every time. And you guys are. Yes, exactly, Elizabeth. Ambition is a terrible thing. It has its value, but the downsides outweigh the pluses. So when you start to
Yes.
say shift ambition into aspiration, which is that very first task and exercise question, right? To pay attention to your aspiration. This is a much more
Yes.
profound thing. So if you can imagine a society starting over where ambition is not the driving force, but aspirations, excellence, value, real value. What is the value of your ambition in the end? And at what cost? Yes. Yes, you get your gold medal. What was the cost that you got your gold medal? To say, oh, look at me, look at me, look at me. Well, take Michael Phelps, right? He's the guy who got the most gold medals ever. What is he a spokesman for? What is he advertising? Psychology. online psychology access. Why? Because he suffered from major depression. Guy who won the most gold medals ever suffers from major depression. Makes you think a bit, no? See, we got to pay attention. We got to pay attention to the actuality, not the idea. This is what discernment is all about. This is what discernment is about. Oh, I'm looking forward to going through these questions here. You know what? You know what I might do? I might just come back on as a live a little bit later and go through those questions. I
Oh,
can't
yes.
add it
Okay.
to this.
That would be
Maybe, but it'd probably be better just to answer them in chat there. All
yes.
right, all right. So I love all of you dearly, and I feel so. Oh man, what a waste to miss all your wonderful responses there. Like Norma says. Luckily, I click love on them, so I know where I was last. You see, I was last on that to be self-sufficient on all existence levels from Ramsey. But Norma said we used to look for differences to find the best, but now we should look for sameness. Well, yes and no, Norma. We also want to celebrate difference, but the sameness of yes, intent to goodness in that sense. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes. Equality of value, not equality of ability, because we're all different. This is just a reality. Look, I could do walk those cans. Nobody even came close to where I was, right, in walking the cans out there. I mean, this was at the yacht club on the regattas on the weekends, on Saturday nights, or the parties. They would have them every now and then. It was kind of a thing that happened, right? So it wasn't just a one-time thing. And nobody even came close to what I could do. I just had the skill and this ability. Who knows why? Does it matter? No, it doesn't really matter. Did I feel special because of it? No, not really. Well, okay, I can do it. So what? It's just fun, right? So, but my point is that when it comes to equality, that that I very soon recognized that there is difference, and that difference doesn't make me special or superior. I was also a sailing prodigy in the community that I was on. I mean, I literally had a mantelpiece full of trophies. I won everything I sailed against. Adults, it doesn't matter. I won all the trophies, won all the races, like by a long shot, right? But I was acutely aware that the competition wasn't all that hard, right? So yes, okay, I'm winning all the races, winning all the championships and everything, but it's in a small pond, very literally a small pond, right? So when I went to sail against everybody else in the country, well, okay, I was still a good sailor, but now not as outstanding as I was. All right, I was also very young, but still, I really got to understand the relative value, that sometimes you can be the small fish in a minuscule pond and think you're an actual big fish. No, you're not, right? So, but also to appreciate this, that equality, we aren't equal and it doesn't matter. So you come along and you've got skills. I just celebrate them. Man, you can really draw beautifully. Wow. Wow. You can make these beautiful paintings. Me, no. So, but why? I don't feel bad about it. I just love the fact that you can do it. See,
Yes.
because there's no comparativeness. And so I'm not insisting on this idea of sameness. We are the same in the sense of our goodness, yes, but not necessarily in our skills and our abilities. And those take us that difference that makes us, that makes each of our uniqueness special. Yes. And sometimes just we don't have to have skills and abilities. We can just be good and have that intent to goodness that Norma talked about, Rabina talked about. And this is enough to make us lovable. Yes, I know many people like this. They're not particularly skilled. They don't have a huge education, whatever. Does that matter to me? Not in one iota at all. Because I know educated people that I don't want to hang out with. Sorry. I have no interest. Or intellectuals. Oh no, they just it's not fun to hang out with them. But my friends that are just simple people, they call themselves simple people. Not me calling themselves simple. They call themselves simple, but they've got good hearts. They've got this deep intent to goodness. I love hanging out with them. Right? It's beautiful. So yes, the sameness and all this. We don't necessarily have to have sameness in the sense of skills and abilities, but sameness when it comes to intent to goodness. Absolutely. And that inner desire for nobility and all that. A seed does not hustle and work hard to become a full tree. What a lovely quote there. A seed does not hustle and work hard to become a fruit tree. Exactly. It just does what it does. Exactly. A very cool quote, Ramsey. We need to learn from it and work in silence with fluid, unforced manner and get self-absorbed, project this nobleness inside to the outside and give fruits. Exactly. A seed has independence of being. Uh, However, however, it also collaborates with its environment. Yes, it collaborates with the sun, with the water, with the soil, with the nutrients, right? Without that collaboration, it doesn't work. Yes. So this is the magic. Absolutely, absolutely, Ramsey. What a lovely comment. So I might as well do the comments now, Bina. I got reinvigorated here. Elizabeth says, personal empowerment enhances each
So many
other and the
pictures from.
overall. Oh, oh, oh. I'm here. I'm here. As long as you can hear me. If my picture's frozen, all right. Well, I'm practicing my ventriloquism, Bina, so you can't see my mouth moving. Yeah, I'm practicing my ventriloquism, so you can't see my mouth moving.
Okay, my picture was frozen. Your picture was frozen.
Oh, okay.
So
But,
I was
but
able.
as long as we can be heard. Listen what Elizabeth says here. Personal empowerment enhances each other and the overall. Exactly. Personal empowerment is another word for achieving independence of being. Right? When you have independence of being, you're going to be personally empowered. Yes. Now, personal empowerment doesn't mean having power over other people. It simply means that you can use yourself and you can be yourself. Yes, both. Right. Very powerful. Celebrating independence of being creates more to share. Yes, Elizabeth. Identifying with lack and comparative thinking replaced with contentment and service to community. Yes, that comparative thinking, I call it the comparative mindset. It is absolutely intrinsic to the superiority paradigm. Everything is always being compared. Yes, and I call it, sorry, Bina, close your ears, shit pile logic. Yeah. Because it's a wow, I chased Bina off because of no, she's frozen. You see, when she freezes, then it dies. But this point of shit pile logic, it's in the book, in the book about the superiority paradigm. It's like, wow, I'm king of the shit pile. And whoever's, very proud of themselves to be king of the shit pile. But excuse me, King shit pile, aren't you living in a shit pile? Yeah, yes, but I'm king. But you're living in a shit pile. Yeah, yes, of course I'm living in a shit pile, but I'm the king of the shit pile. They don't get it. They don't get how just relative can be in actuality be terrible. And they're so consumed by this idea that they're willing to tolerate living in a shit pile in order to be king. What ridiculous nonsense. Right? All because of this flawed belief of superior paradigm and comparative mindset, right? So comparative mindset is very, very destructive. It very many instances. I'm not going to go into all of them now, but absolutely, that's a very beautiful sentiment, very beautifully expressed there, Elizabeth. Thank you. Very nice. Our social failures, war, slavery, greed, etc., have informed our new direction. Yes. And also, I have a very deep perspective shifting workshop based on the 10 Commandments and how we take those. Now, this has come up, it's in the news, people want to put them up. There's no discernment with this, there's no thinking it through. When you actually start to pay attention, we start to see how, wow, we take this to be an obvious good, but when you really pay attention a little bit, we don't. For instance, right, I start off and I make this long list of commandments. And the first part of the workshop is uh, uh, actually, I'm going to do this workshop with you guys rather than give it all away. But it's a very powerful thing. All right. Ramsey says, I've started all my ventures with so little money. You need to only have the know-how and start getting clients. You plant the seed first and need to only water it in the beginning. Your character and ethics make money. And this is why you take all money from all rich people and divide them among everyone. They will get back to the same old pockets. Yes, unfortunately. Yeah, but this is what I'm looking to change for the paradigm. The superiority paradigm can never get enough because it's so insecure. Yeah, it's dreadfully, dreadfully insecure. Always dreadfully insecure. So, and that's why they have to have more, more, more. Doesn't matter that you got to have 1 billion. Now you got to have 2 billion. It's terrible. Insecurity. It feeds on itself. Insecurity is a terrible, terrible disease, much like desperation. They kind of go hand in hand. Very, very powerful. All right. Thank you very much, all you wonderful, beautiful hearts. And I shall see you tomorrow, hopefully. If not, that's okay too. Don't. Again, please don't ever feel obligated to come. If you come, you come. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing. If not, that's all good too. So I'll see you when I see you, and I just love this. I'm really enjoying doing this with you. It's a great joy. It's a great joy. I really wish more would see the value the way you do as well. But that's okay too. The fact that to me, if it was just me and Bina doing this, that would be okay too. Right? So all of you are bonus, or just Norma here, or just whoever, any one of you, just you, that's fine too. So thank you, Norma. I'm so pleased you were here and were able to stay for all of it, Norma. Just too wonderful, Norma. So yes, I'll chat to you later. I'm assuming, Norma, we chat a lot. So I just love that you're here, Norma, and love you too, of course. Yes, you know that. You know that, yes, Norma. You don't often get to hear me say it. You get to see me type it, but you don't get to hear me say it. So yes, love you very much, Norma. Love you very. You have such a beautiful heart, Norma. It's a true joy and delight. All right, all right. I better go. I was going to get all soppy over here. All right. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.